It's the Champions League quarterfinal draw. We are so excited for Qué Golazo. We're doing a live watch along, and I'm so excited to welcome James Bench, of course, from CBS Sports, and Semra Hunter from La Liga TV. We're going to be discussing, previewing, dissecting everything that we see today as the Champions League final eight, when it gets really, really interesting, kicks off. Qué Golazo, Champions League live watch along begins right now. Hey everybody, welcome to Qué Golazo. Thank you so much for being part of the family. Qué Golazo Pod on Twitter, youtube.com/Qué Golazo. Thank you so much once again for helping us reach 10,000 plus subscribers. We continue to grow, and it's all because of you. First of all, before we welcome in, obviously, our usual brilliant James Benjamin, let's talk to Semra Hunter. Return to the show. Semra, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. It's really early in the morning for me as opposed to both of you, but I'm very excited. I only get up for a few reasons. One is
early in the morning for me.
Yeah, exactly. One's because my wife's a teacher. Two, James Bench sometimes. And three, the Champions League draw. James Bench, how are you, buddy?
I am buzzing. I'm fantastic. This is like it was like our last day of draws.
Yeah.
Which is always more fun than the football, I think.
I don't know about that, James, but it is pretty exciting. I'll give you that.
I don't know. Maybe it depends on the kind of reception that we'll get. If we remember, everybody, we had to redo the other draw last time, thanks to your former archivist who messed the balls up, and we had to redo it. So it was a very long day for everybody. But welcome, everybody, to our live watch-along Champions League. It begins in about 10 minutes, by the way. We will find out exactly what the quarterfinal draws is. So before we begin and everything, and I want Semra and James to chime in before the draw begins, we're in a very good mood today. We have a $100 Paramount Plus gift card to give away to one lucky viewer. And to be in the chance of winning one, make sure that you drop in your handle in the chat. That's literally all you have to do. Semra, I'm telling you, we're giving these Paramount gift cards away, and we're asking just to them drop their handle, and they just don't do it. We're giving stuff away, so please make sure that you do it, and we'll announce the winner on Sunday's weekend recap. Important point, by the way. Sorry, Semra and James, you need a U.S. mailing address to be eligible for this one. So, if you're watching from the U.S., well, first of all, well done.
It's not even 7 a.m. Get it posted to your house, couldn't I?
Yeah, exactly. And I can actually get it posted to my parents' house.
Oh, well, perfect. Where do your parents live, Semra? Where do they live?
They live in Sarasota in Florida.
Oh, so done. Perfect. So wake up your parents and tell them to
jump in. They're closer to you than they are to me.
I love it. But we have a gift card to give away, so please make sure that you drop your handle and send us a mailing address as well once you win it. Also, we have a Roma shirt to give away, UEFA Conference League style, to celebrate Sunday's Derby della Capitale, which you can stream exclusively on Paramount Plus. Our friends at New Balance have also given us 2 limited edition shirts, one medium, one large, to give away to 2 lucky viewers. So if you drop your handle and shirt size in the chat for a chance to win a Roma shirt. Important point, once again, you have to be Semra's parents and have a U.S. mailing address. All right, let's begin. Let's begin with you, Semra, the guest of honor. Big teams, before we get into it, because I know Spanish-wise, Unai Emery, well done, my friend. But Spanish-wise, teams are looking good, both from England and Spain. This is why we have this crew today. But I did want, Semra, big teams have been eliminated. PSG, Man United, Juventus, Ajax. Do you think the competition is weaker without them?
No, I don't think so, to be honest with you. I think the strongest teams have gone ahead. This is the part where we start trimming the fat, where it's survival of the fittest. I think the biggest surprises are Benfica and Villarreal, to be completely honest. I think Benfica, it was the biggest shock maybe of knocking out Ajax, a team that has been such fun to watch. They're entertainers. They play the exact same way they do in their domestic league in the Netherlands as they do in Europe. They love that possession game. They love to press high. They love to move the ball around, and they score an average of more than 2 goals per game. So they're really fun. And I think there was a high expectation with Erik ten Hag that he would go through, that they would advance even further. But Benfica, they defended so incredibly well, even though they're having a really up and down season domestically. So, they're a little bit of a surprise package, I think. They haven't won anything in terms of trophies in the last 2 years. They're very, very short options of winning something again this season, being knocked out of the cup, and they're third in the league, 12 points adrift. So it's do or die for them in the Champions League. When it comes to Villarreal, it's kind of a similar story in that they're a bit up and down domestically, but they have had so many injuries and suspensions and players away to the Africa Cup of Nations. Unai Emery has been juggling the pieces week in, week out. Their star player, Gerard Moreno, he's been out injured for most of the season. He came back, obviously played a pivotal role against Juventus. So I think that was a bit of a surprise too, that maybe Juventus is traditional heavyweights, even though in the last few seasons that really hasn't been the case. They're a bit of a mess behind the scenes too, getting knocked out for the last 4 years consecutively, 3 in a row in the round of 16, but to clubs that have smaller budgets like Porto, Lyon, I think Ajax as well, and now Villarreal. So you can't always live off of your name, you can't live off everything that you've done in the past. And so it's interesting. But I think for me, those are the two big surprises, Villarreal and Benfica.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anything, the Champions League is almost improved by losing some big. I'd say big names rather than big teams, because frankly, some of the teams we lost were not very good.
Yeah, big reputations as opposed to big teams, right?
Yeah. I think at this sort of stage of the year, you kind of want a bit of a PSG psychodrama. You want Andrea Agnelli to have sort of thrown in his face yet another team who he would consider not worthy of his Super League. Exactly. I mean, to be honest, I think there's an increasing argument that Andrea Agnelli needs a Super League just so he can find teams that his Juventus team can actually beat.
I think that's really it, right?
Yeah, a breakaway league where Juventus play like, I don't know, Ludogorets, and teams like that, so that they can just enjoy winning some football matches. I think that would be great for Agnelli. But I mean, kind of where we've come to, I think the key thing is, when we've been looking throughout the course, you didn't agree with me, LME, but I mean, I only ever thought there were 4 teams that you would fancy to win this. The 3 English teams that are still in the hat and Bayern. So we've still got them. Like the best team in Europe is probably still going to win. At the very least, it's not going to be like a Greece winning Euro 2004 situation.
No, that's definitely
that would be brilliant, though. I mean, let's face it.
It would be good.
That would be. I'd be willing to have an underdog win it, but I think you're right. It's not going to happen.
I think it depends on obviously the journey and the narrative of how they end up in the first place. But you do make a good point, James Mensch, of course, about the power of the Premier League, and we do, I think, agree. At least we have from the very beginning the top 2. Although this is why Semra Hunter's here, because I do want to bring in the power of the Spanish teams, Real Madrid, of course, Carlo Ancelotti, and what he did in order to beat PSG, of course, Atletico Madrid to get it going against Manchester United, Cholo Simeone doing a Cholo Simeone special, basically. Villarreal, Unai Emery, fantastic, making history for the first time in his career, going to the quarterfinals of European competition. I mean, that's big, Semra. How are your thoughts about the Spanish teams as we're just a few minutes away from the draw?
Firstly, I would say I'm really proud of them because I love La Liga, I love the Spanish teams, and I love to see as many of them advance as far as they possibly can in European competition because they get so much stick for this so-called Farmers League, which is absolute rubbish and nonsense. Those are just people who have never watched Spanish football. I'm sorry, Correct. It has to be said. We're talking about a league that has dominated the continent, both on a club and a national, international level for the better part of the 21st century, right? With Real Madrid and Barcelona consistently winning the league, the Champions League, and even Spain winning the Euros twice and the World Cup. So yes, it's an incredibly strong league. I will granted, I will admit that there are ebbs and flows to this. The Premier League, at least in the case of Liverpool and City, they're in a league of their own. Yeah. And then I think there's everybody else. And I do think that the league in Spain has kind of ebbed a little bit in the last few years, but there is a bit of a renaissance and it is starting to get stronger again. Barca will definitely be a team to compete against next season. Real Madrid, I think, will make some changes in the summer. We'll see what happens with Mbappe, the obviously worst kept secret in football. So I think there will be a bit of a resurgence in teams like Real Madrid and Barcelona who can seriously challenge Liverpool and City in the next few years, not immediately, but certainly in the near future. So I'm really proud that they are advancing as far as they have. I'm gutted for Sevilla and for Real Betis. And to get knocked out the way they did in the final minute, in the 121st minute for Betis, it was just heartbreaking. But anyway, I think it's brilliant. I don't fancy them to win the Champions League, I have to say. But I hope they do go far. I really do.
Well, Semra, we did have a question. Does Unai Emery's, and Raj, thank you so much for joining. Keep those questions coming, especially throughout the entire live watch along. Does Unai Emery's Villarreal have a chance to make it to the semis and final, or did they get lucky by knocking Juve out? You kind of answered it in the first part, but why don't you dissect Villarreal a little bit? Because I think people underestimate just how good Unai Emery is in Europe and figuring out how to break down teams who don't know how to break down themselves.
First things first, Unai Emery is a great tactician. He's obsessive about football. He studies opponents with rigor. He sets up his teams to try and counteract and to nullify the strengths of the other team. And it's been working a lot better in Europe than it has in La Liga. And again, like I said, part of it has been the massive amounts of changes he's had to consistently do because he's trying to constantly plug up holes within the team. And he's been without his main man, the most important figure in the side, Gerard Moreno, for most of the season, but he is back now. So I don't think it's necessarily luck against Juve, because once they got that penalty and they did have a breakthrough against them, Juventus, they collapsed. So that is more of their own doing than it was of Villarreal, even if for the first 70, 75 minutes in the second leg, the Italians were a bit better. I think it will depend on who they face in the quarterfinals to see how far they can actually make it. But they've been very pragmatic in Europe, and they've come with a very defensive mindset, which is not something they typically do in La Liga. They're a very flexible, tactically adept team. So they can go forward and play very offensive, attacking football if they want to. But in Europe, that hasn't been the case. We saw that against Manchester United in the final. They took them all the way to the penalties and managed to win, and they won the Europa League. Then we saw the same thing against Chelsea in the European Super Cup, and the same thing. They were very defensive in their approach. They took them to penalties, but then they marginally lost out. And I think that's kind of been the approach here in the Champions League this season as well. It's let's sit tight. Let's set up a low block. Let's try not to allow for spaces, not allow for opposition teams who are probably better going forward to find a way through, and just take our opportunity, one or two, whatever we get, but take it and be efficient with it. So I think that will be the case going forward. And again, I think it really does matter who they will have in front of them in the next round. And that will determine whether they will be able to get through or not in the next round. But I have a feeling that this might be as far as they go. I hope that's not the case, but I think they might get knocked out in this round.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. But I certainly, having covered his time at Arsenal extensively, I would not take anything for granted when it comes to Unai Emery and two-legged affairs. I don't know what it is. And I think actually maybe you sometimes see in the league, like, his tendency to tailor things to the opposition. I think maybe in league play, it like you need to have a base formula that you fall back on, and teams don't. Emery teams don't always. Certainly Arsenal didn't by the end. But actually, kind of for two games against the same opponent, it can be quite helpful to have someone that's managing live, basically. I really like the guy. And I would not want to draw his team. I mean, I suppose the only thing I'd say about that and La Liga, it's a fantastic achievement. It's three good teams that are really strong, but I think the draw helped them. Obviously, PSG helped Real Madrid generously.
They sure did.
Yeah, there was a team for Villarreal to play and kind of dismantle, especially one that's pretty reactive, is Juventus, especially from what the way that Max Allegri faces. By the way, the draw has started. Pedro Pinto looking very smooth there next to Orejas. We're going to find out. We're getting all these comments. Obviously, a lot of support for Man City, but we're getting some sneaky suspicions about Real Madrid. I've already given sort of my dream scenario of this draw quickly before it happens. I want a Madrid derby. Semra Hunter.
No, the final.
No, I want a Madrid derby now. I don't want to risk it. I want it right now. I want Man City against Liverpool. I want 2 home club and 2 legs. What else do I want? I want Bayern. I want Lewandowski. I want Chelsea, Liverpool, and I want Lewandowski against Man City. I want Benfica and Villarreal to just knock each other out. Give me your dream scenarios, James Bench, and then Semra, you jump in.
I like Benfica Villarreal. That sounds cool. An English quarterfinal. I'm not actually. No, I think City Liverpool is really good because it would be either side of Man City Liverpool in the Premier League. So you get this like absolute bloodbath where you could have basically the 2 biggest trophies in Europe, Premier League and the Champions League. They could both be decided almost in the space of a week, and then Chelsea Bayern sounds super fun. What does that leave me with? That leaves me with the Madrid derby. Sorry, Semra. Sounds quite good.
No.
What do you want, Semra?
I'm going for the English bloodbath. I'm going for, what did you say, City and Liverpool? I'm going for that.
Okay.
I want them to knock each other out as soon as possible. And the same with Chelsea. I want somebody to knock them out. So I'm going Bayern, Chelsea.
Okay.
We'll leave Benfica. Oh, but then that means I've got Atletico Madrid. Damn it.
Okay. It always ends with a Madrid derby. This is the problem.
All roads lead to a Madrid derby.
And we have one when we have one later in La Liga too, right? We have one in May as well. So we'll have a few there. Yeah. So listen, well, I want the final to be Man City, Real Madrid. What do you want as the final, Semra? And James, jump in.
I need to think about this.
You definitely want a Spanish team.
Well, yeah, I want a Spanish team. I mean, it would be unbelievable for Villarreal. It's not going to happen, okay? Let's just make that very clear.
You're being such a romantic right now.
I know, but I do have a very romantic side. And I would just love to see Villarreal go the distance. We're talking about a team of 50,000, a town of 50,000 people. You can fill up the Camp Nou twice.
Yeah, and Arnaud Danjuma is a friend of the show too. So like, I love Arnaud Danjuma. We interviewed him a few months
ago. He's having a phenomenal season. He started out really well. There was a bit of a dip and a lull for a while, but now he's coming back into form.
I think something silly like directly involved in 17 goals in both La Liga and the Champions League. Amazing.
And they've really needed him.
So Villarreal, you won in the final, but it's not going to
happen. So let's say, I think Atletico Madrid, it would be nice, considering that they made 2 finals and both times they went up against Real Madrid and both times they lost. Yeah. So it'd be kind of nice, third time's a charm, if they were able to do it this time. I know people really don't find Atletico Madrid's style of play palatable. That's fine. But it just, for all the efforts that Cholo Simeone has done for the last decade, everything that he's achieved, how he's made this team into a massive heavyweights in the 10 years that he's been there and consistently competing, going toe-to-toe with the biggest teams in Europe. I mean, I just think it would be great for them. But realistically, of the 3 Spanish teams, it would be Real Madrid because it's just in their DNA. They don't have to play pretty football. It doesn't have to be good. They just somehow manage to dig deep and grind out wins when they need it most.
And Karim Benzema,
So then...
So who's the other?
Who do I want to avoid then? Who do I want to avoid more, City or Liverpool?
That's a very difficult question.
It's got to be one of the two, isn't it?
As you're thinking, Semra, James,
give me yours. Liverpool.
Oh, Liverpool, Real Madrid, the Mohamed Salah revenge.
They played each other in Kiev in the final. Real Madrid won.
They did, and remember the Mohamed Salah injury from Sergio Ramos as well. Yeah, James, give me your final quickly as we look at this draw, and it's nearly there.
Utterly selfish reasons. I want 2 English teams because that's convenient for me. Liverpool, Chelsea, because it's a tie with a bit of European heritage, even though it has two English teams. So if I was picking a non-English team for let's have a proper European final reasons, I would have Atletico. So maybe Chelsea, Atletico Madrid. Chelsea's just so much drama at the moment. I want that.
Yeah. I mean, don't disregard the Cholo Simeone efforts in this competition. The same way, of course, with Thomas Tuchel, obviously with a stronger team, arguably. But I want to ask everybody who's watching, which team do you want to face in the quarterfinals? If you were, the other side, who do you want to face? And also, don't forget, we're giving away Paramount Plus gift card and a shirt, 2 shirts, actually. So drop in your handle as well. So the draw is nearly there. Michael Silvestre. My friend, actually, I know him well. Silvestre has joined in on the fun. Please don't mess things up, Michael Silvestre. He's joined in on the fun as the draw is nearly there. I did want to also ask, as we continue, we're nearly there to figuring out what these teams are going to look like, what these fixtures are going to look like from mid-April. All right, let me say this. From this quarterfinal draw, what do you think will be the most exciting fixture? The one that all neutrals will be watching if you were picking one. There's no love for Bayern, apparently, Rick Haley. That's true. Yeah, let's go to that question. What are your thoughts on Bayern Munich, Semra Hunter?
My thoughts on Bayern Munich, I think they're definitely one to keep an eye on. I think they definitely are very strong, as they typically tend to be. They've scored already more than 100 goals this season in all competition. Look at Lewandowski. He scored 41 goals across both competitions, 12 in the Champions League, 29 in Germany. He's in firing form. I think they're incredibly strong going forward, but I think there is a caveat to them this campaign, which is that they're a little bit weaker defensively than they had been in previous seasons because they press so high. They leave themselves so exposed at the back that they're allowing for teams to arrive to the Bayern goal with much more ease and more frequency than perhaps previous seasons. It doesn't help that Neuer's been out with a long-term injury, although I don't think he's the reason or the fault for this. But they have been a little bit more inconsistent. I mean, there have been games where they're obviously scoring 5, 6, 7, whatever, but they also lose by 4 goals. 4-2, for example, the other day. They lost 5-0 to Borussia Mönchengladbach in the cup, wasn't it? Or they got knocked out of the cup, I think.
Yeah,
so
they did. That's right.
They're a little bit more regular in that sense.
And to your point, they welcome goals, Bayern Munich.
They do.
Like,
they
score
exactly.
a lot, but they welcome them. Yeah, James, on Bayern Munich, what do you think before this draw begins?
Probably more reliant on fitness. I mean, we're assessing them against the highest standard. We're kind of not, sort of like just explaining away their flaws. We have to heighten them because they're one of the potential favourites. So Nicholas Süle, I think they say now might be out for a month. He's been really good for them defensively. And, heaven forbid anything happened to Joshua Kimmich, because then that midfield is just like, there's no one there that Nagelsmann seems to really trust. So a bit light, but then, hey, like maybe that front 6 or however many he rolls out, maybe they all just click one day and blow a team away. That's, they could easily do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, let's not always forget Bayern Munich, but let's also remember how vulnerable they can be, especially the moment they lose the ball. I mean, I'm thinking about a Man City, a Chelsea, even an Atletico Madrid as well, who's probably looking for some revenge. All right, the balls are being picked by Miguel Silvestre, and here we go. The first one to come out of the pod is Des Norris. I don't know if you have a drum roll there, but I'll do one proverbially. But because Silvestre is pulling out the team, and the team is Chelsea. Chelsea is first.
Okay.
All right, so here we go. So Chelsea is the team that's being picked out first, and they will be facing. Oh, there's a little bit of a conversation introducing about what Chelsea are all about, etc., etc. I mean, this is the situation where it's like, so let's just pull it out. Like, I don't need the essay. And here we go.
You know how these draws go. How these draws go.
Here we go. The next team to come out is Real Madrid. Real Madrid. Chelsea against Real Madrid.
I love it.
Unbelievable.
I love it.
Thomas Tuchel, Carlo Ancelotti, Lukaku, Karim Benzema. Immediate thoughts, quick. James Bench, Samra, you jump in.
I mean, I think one problem Chelsea are going to have here is they have to go to a Bernabeu that'll be full of fans, and they have probably none at home.
Can they afford to get to Madrid, James Bench? That's the first part.
Oh, yeah, that is a big question. Megabus.
Very quickly, who's getting out alive of this one? Who's getting out of this one alive? Samra Hunter, quick.
Real Madrid, obviously. I'm sorry, I'm biased, but Real Madrid.
James Bench?
Chelsea. Christian Pulisic will score the winner.
I'm going with a Real Madrid win here.
Karim Benzema, man, don't write him off.
Yeah. I'm going with a Real Madrid win. Yep. All right, the team to come out next is Man City.
Ooh.
Manchester City is up. Miguel Silvestre against a former rival, of course, Man City. So the first 2 teams to come out first from each fixture are the Premier League teams, of course. So Man City.
Many of them. They're like bugs.
Yeah. And then here we go. Silvestre, he does a really good job at juggling the balls out to make that
a
all
nice suit he's wearing.
Yeah, he's looking very sweet.
French colours as well.
He doesn't age. And the team they are facing is Atletico de Madrid.
Worked out very well.
Semra, straight away. Atleti Man City. Thoughts?
Atletico Madrid are going to defend tooth and nail. They're just going to defend their little hearts out. There's no question about it. Manchester City, I think, have a very good chance of knocking them out.
James Bench?
Oh, man.
I mean, everything Semra says is right, but I feel like if you were going to pick a team in this field for Guardiola to Guardiola things up and for City to just kind of explode and go mad, and like, we've got this all wrong.
Sorry to interrupt. Villarreal is out next.
Okay. Come on, Benfica. Come on, Benfica. Come on, Benfica.
So you have Man City beating Atleti, right, Semra?
Unfortunately, yes.
And James Bench?
Yes. Yeah.
Spain is out right away, says Rick Haley. Semra Hunter.
No!
I have Real Madrid.
Spain is out already.
Yeah, I have Real Madrid winning, by the way. All right, here we go. And let's see who Villarreal will be facing.
Oh, God.
Oh my
Benfica,
goodness.
Benfica,
I know
Benfica,
exactly
Benfica.
It
who.
was nice having
Bayern
them.
Munich.
No!
Semra, thoughts? That's her thoughts, right?
It's the end of the dream. It's the end of the fairy tale. That's it.
I don't know. I wouldn't disregard Unai Emery. Thoughts, James Bench? Very quick.
No, I'm disregarding Unai Emery.
That has just crushed me. I think that's probably going to be the most diametrically unbalanced.
Yeah. Well, here comes the next team. And of course, it's Benfica and Liverpool. It's going to be the next one. So there you have it. Wow. Well, Jurgen Klopp, you should be, well, I don't know, actually. Benfica should not be completely disregarded, James Bench. What do you think about that last one?
Well, you
he
play
doesn't
that
sound like he agrees with you.
Oh, penultimate one. I'm sorry, because the next game. Oh no, yeah, it is Liverpool. There you go.
Yeah, I think if you play that Benfica Ajax tie over 10 times, Ajax win it 9 out of 10. So but Benfica got pretty lucky, it has to be said. And I would think Liverpool will win this pretty handily.
Okay, well, here are the quarterfinal fixtures. Chelsea against Real Madrid, Man City against Atleti de Madrid, Villarreal against Bayern Munich, Benfica against Liverpool. Really, I didn't expect any of those fixtures, actually. I know. So, Semra Hunter, straight away, I mean, I know that your initial gut reaction for Spanish teams is not good, but who is the one club from La Liga that you think, they could make it to the semifinals?
Real Madrid.
Yeah.
If it's just one, if I have to pick just one, I think Real Madrid probably have the most favorable tie of the three.
Who would be next?
Who would be next to go through from Spanish teams?
Yeah, who basically, I guess what I'm asking is who's basically done? Like, is it Man City against Atleti? Do you think that's too much for Simeone? Or is it Unai Emery against Bayern Munich? Or is it both?
I think Villarreal are out. I hate to say it. I really hate to say it. I just think that on paper, Bayern Munich are just a much better, much stronger team. Yeah. And also it will depend on physically who's available to play for Villarreal at that point in time. Atletico Madrid, you raise an interesting point about Guardiola doing Guardiola things against Cholo Simeone. Maybe Atletico will win at home, but I think in England it might be a little bit tougher. Correct me if I'm wrong, James, but City, they tend to struggle against deep-lying sides, right?
Just to interrupt, by the way, the winners of quarterfinal 2, that's Man City against Atleti, will face the winners of quarterfinal 1, which is Chelsea against Real Madrid. So you could have a Madrid derby in the semifinals, or you could have an all-English situation in the semifinals. James Bench, thoughts on that? Actually, before you give me your thoughts, very quickly, Sylvester's pulling the other one out. So obviously the other side,
Liverpool-Bayern.
Yeah, Liverpool-Bayern against Benfica or Liverpool. Yeah. So, I mean, thoughts, James? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, definitely the standout tie. I think the one that there's sort of some real edge to is the Chelsea-Madrid tie. I think that's the one that you could kind of maybe see going either way. I agree with Semra. Like the low block could frustrate Guardiola. I think you can see Atletico doing to City what like Tottenham did, which is, people kind of described it as quite negative football, but it wasn't. It was we will defend deep in numbers, which we know Atleti don't do as well as they used to, but still can do pretty well, and then fly up the wings. Renan Lodi has been probably like my standout player of the whole tournament. Like one of the players I just did not know was as good as he was.
I don't think any of us knew it, to be honest.
No.
And I think Cholo Simeone pulled another massive stroke out of the bag with him by moving him up 20 meters and letting him go forward.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So you do that, and Griezmann, Correa, Suarez, whoever it is, you have players that can maybe nick it on the break. Equally, like you're probably just going to get ground to dust by Mahrez and De Bruyne and Foden and Grealish. But
that's the fear.
Those two are the fun ones for me. And Chelsea.
Well, this is the fun part, everybody. Now that we know the fixtures, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of this and dissect every fixture as the Champions League quarterfinal draw is set. Semra Hunter, James Bench, LME here, and what we'll be doing right now, after we take a break, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have thoughts on each matchup, perhaps best matchup, biggest mismatch, predictions, and so much more. Qué Golazo Champions League quarterfinal. Semra Hunter, James Bench, LME. We'll be right back.
Europe's top teams.
This is Neymar!
Europe's top talent, all competing.
Oh, that is beautiful!
To be crowned champion. The UEFA Champions League and the UEFA Europa League. Stream every match live on Paramount Plus.
Welcome, everybody, to the Champions League Qué Golazo quarterfinal draw show. Semra Hunter from La Liga TV is in the house. James Bench, our very own James Bench from CBS Sports, is in the house. We're going to be talking about the fixtures, what just happened. We'll have some thoughts, best matchups, biggest mismatches, predictions, and so much more. Semra Hunter, first of all, before we get into it, I know that I've already asked you this, but I have to ask you once again your initial thoughts about Spanish teams and their fates as they hope to get into the Final Four from the Final 8.
In a nutshell, I would say my biggest hope and faith lies in Real Madrid. I think they have the most evenly balanced tie of the three Spanish teams. I think Atletico Madrid are somewhere in the medium ground where they might be able to pull off a positive results in one of the legs, but I think over the two legs, it'll be Man City that goes through, and Villarreal, I just don't think they have a shot in you-know-what. So I'm really sorry to say that.
Here, Semra, don't worry.
Can I? Okay, I don't think Villarreal have a shot in hell. It really saddens me to say it, but I think that the fairy tale, the dream, it ends here for them. I think Bayern Munich are just far too strong, far too superior, and they have too much experience at this level in European competition, the Champions League and the European Cup, right? Villarreal, they've only reached the quarterfinals in this competition for the third time. And they've only just won the Europa League for the first time ever in their history last year. So I think this is just a little bit too beyond them. But Real Madrid-Chelsea, that's an interesting one. That's a really, really interesting one. And I think with the way that Real Madrid have been playing lately, Ancelotti has made them a little bit more flexible and tactically adept as well. Typically, you would think of them as a classic textbook counter-attacking side. But actually, recently, Ancelotti wants them to play really high up the pitch, employ really high press, and play with a lot of intensity. And they've been doing that. So depending on who they have ahead of them and also the phase of the game, because they can change things up too, depending, then you don't really necessarily know what you're going to get from Madrid. It's a little bit more unpredictable than usual. But having said that, Chelsea, they're probably in the best run of form of the season. What have they? I mean, they've done incredibly well, right? I mean, it's like, I can't remember exactly, 5 wins on the bounce. Is it something like that, James, now? And they've really hit their stride. Obviously, everything that's going on outside of the realm of just the pitch may have an impact. It may not have an impact. We'll have to wait and see. But then again, I think, going back to City and Atletico Madrid, it's a real clash of styles. There's no question about it. Guardiola, possession, pressing, intensity, aggressivity, moving the ball around. And it's just going to be Atletico Madrid saying, okay, you guys come at us. We're going to sit deep. Every man behind the ball. Probably a 5-4-1 in defense. Just leaving Joao Felix a little bit further afield up to get the ball to him as quickly as they can if they get an opportunity to hit on the counter. But it's going to be a really tough one for everybody. I'm so gutted.
I know it's gonna be a tough one, but before we go into James Bench's thoughts, I'm gonna go to him first. After that, let me just break it down for everybody joining regarding the quarterfinal draw. So I'll break down the fixtures and what we can expect. It's gonna be Chelsea against Real Madrid, Manchester City against Atletico de Madrid, Villarreal against Bayern Munich, and Benfica against Liverpool. There you have our graphic from CBS Sports Golazo. We'll be talking about each game. So James Bench, let's do this, James Bench, actually. Let's go from that graphic itself. Let's begin with Benfica against Liverpool. Obviously, Benfica did tremendously to get to this point, beating an Ajax side that many of us thought go even all the way to the final, not just the quarters, facing a Liverpool side that's clicking, pushing for the title. I mean, things are looking good. Jurgen Klopp had an amazing quote a few days ago. I'm going to try and find it before we go
to momentum. It's like a flower.
Yeah, he compared momentum to a delicate flower. Obviously, it's a beautiful thing, but if you step on it just like that, it's gone. My God, Jurgen, Emily Dickinson, Klopp, incredible stuff there. James Bench, Benfica against Liverpool. Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, he was going on a bit in that press conference. Ended up running to about 20 minutes. I really had a home to get to. I think this is probably the most one-sided. And I think kind of when we look at the ties as a whole, this isn't 1985 NBA draft. Let's get Patrick Ewing to the New York Knicks. But there's some very
well said.
Fantastic. The draw has clearly worked in a way where we can be pretty certain that, we'll get 4 of the 5 best teams in Europe, I think. Chelsea / Real Madrid, and then we kind of think the other 3, we have a rough idea who we're getting. But yeah, Benfica are going to find it really tough. They defended doggedly. They just parked everyone behind the ball against Ajax, and against Ajax, it just about worked. It would not work that often. Liverpool are just, the squad depth they have at the moment is phenomenal. 2 top quality players. We saw this against Arsenal on Wednesday night, where they were struggling a little bit, and Arsenal were holding firm, and then you kind of just look down to the bench, and there were Roberto Firmino and Mo Salah, and he'll be able to do that whether it's those 2, Jota, Mane. It's his game changers across the pitch. This feels like the most one-sided tie, and I just cannot see a world where Liverpool don't beat Benfica quite handily.
Yeah, Samra?
No, I agree. And going back to the momentum with Liverpool, they've picked up 14? No, they've won 14 out of the last 15 games. They've picked up 14 points to bring the title race to just 1 point behind City. So that's
they have to face each other next month. So wow.
Exactly. So that's turning into something really, really interesting. They're playing exceptionally good football on average in general. They're in a really good vein of form right now. So I think there's a lot of wind in their sails, and I agree. I think Benfica is a very generous opponent to have at this stage. Probably one of the ones that you would have liked to get at this stage, because it's, I don't want to say a guarantee. Obviously, it's not a guarantee. Nothing is. But they have a much higher percentage of going through because of the fact that they do have that depth of squads. He does have so many resources available to him, Jurgen Klopp, and they're just one of the best teams, I think, on the planet right now. And I think it's just difficult for anybody really to put a stop to them. So I would say that's probably one of the most comfortable ties of the quarterfinals.
Well, if Liverpool beat Benfica, they'll face either Bayern Munich or Villarreal in the semifinals of the Champions League, and they would be home in the first leg as well. So, I would imagine that a Liverpool fan is very, very happy. By the way, don't forget, we have a Paramount Plus $100 gift card to give away, some Roma shirts to give away. Give us your handles in the chat. If you haven't done so, please do so. We're just giving things away, and none of you want it. Unbelievable. If this was just all Peruvians, I'm telling you, we'll be taking that in a heartbeat. So I don't know why.
And Spanish people too.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, listen. All right. Well, let's keep going then, and let's talk about that game that we initially discussed. Chelsea against Real Madrid, a tasty encounter. Of course, for our American audience, this isn't a chance for Christian Pulisic to face Real Madrid. If you're a Madridista, it's Karim Benzema, Vinicius Jr. facing, of course, Vinicius Jr. facing against his compatriot, Thiago Silva. There's so many individual matchups to think of. And, of course, Carlo Ancelotti, that knows Chelsea very well, obviously knows the Premier League very well, and Thomas Tuchel as well, I guess, when he faced him when he was with PSG, etc. So, James, let me jump with you first, because as Semra mentioned at the very beginning, Chelsea, aside from the action on the pitch, have to deal with a lot right now. And Thomas Tuchel has been commendable throughout this whole thing, obviously. And I really feel that he goes into that dressing room every single time before a game and says, no matter what's going on outside of here, we can take care of business on the pitch. And I think you're seeing that. But now comes a mountain, an obstacle against Real Madrid. What are your thoughts?
I mean, if we talk about things on the pitch, I think there's quite a big gap between Chelsea and Real Madrid, and it's in Chelsea's favour. I think they have, and to be honest, we saw this last year, didn't we? Where they won quite handily, and I would probably agree that Madrid have got better. Vinicius has taken a huge step forward and gave Chelsea all sorts of difficulties. Chelsea maybe haven't gone that far forward, but it looks like they're finding a template kind of built around Havertz and Pulisic. But as you say, Elemi, this is like the off the field stuff is going to matter as it stands, and we all know we're seeing every day with Chelsea that things can change radically, but as it stands, there's not going to be fans at Stamford Bridge, and that's when it kind of moves from they can cope with not maybe having to get a not getting a charter flight to Madrid. That stuff they can probably cope with. But actually, you know, if you've got to go to the Bernabeu and play against what will be, again, there will be no traveling fans as it stands, a capacity or near capacity Madrid crowd, and then you come back to London or whichever way the ties are, and you don't have that on your side, that hurts. That's tough. That, you know, Stamford Bridge is a great ground on European nights, makes a lot of noise. You know, those fans will let Real Madrid know that they are the champions of Europe. That I think is a potential X factor in this tie, as much as there are, you know, footballing reasons to like Chelsea. I would be really excited for Dani Carvajal against Pulisic as well, because Mbappe was dominant down the PSG left. Pulisic's not that level.
Carvajal is really having a shocking time right now. He's not having a good season. Well, I mean, he was injured for quite some time. He's come back. He's shown that he's not quite up to match sharpness, match fitness. He's made quite a couple of big mistakes. He was dropped the other day, I think, more than he was actually rested. So I think you're right. I think that will be a really interesting battle to keep an eye on, because Pulisic could definitely cause a lot of trouble down Real Madrid's right-hand side.
Yeah, well, Samra, give us Real Madrid's perspective. You know, how would you think Carlo Ancelotti's feeling about this one? Because, you know, to James Benja's point, there are issues, but Chelsea is the defending champion. Chelsea knows what to do against elite competition. Chelsea has some cards up their sleeve. Romelu Lukaku, of course, wasn't there last time around. He's here, of course, despite of how many minutes he may or may not get. They still have N'Golo Kante, Jorginho, of course, etc., etc. How would you feel from a Real Madrid perspective?
I agree with James that I think that when it comes to the quality of the football being played right now, Chelsea are the better team. But I think the one thing that you can't discount from Real Madrid is their mentality. They think that they are the best football club in history. Luka Modric said so the other day before the round of 16.
Yeah. A rejuvenated Luka Modric, by the way. He looks ridiculous right
He's
now.
having a ridiculous season, by the way. If you haven't been watching him, you need to start watching him, because it has just been such a joy. He's so classy, so elegant, and the way that he delivers those passes with such precision, he has such insight and such intellect in the way that he moves the ball around and the way he reads the game. It's fabulous to see. But anyway, back to my point. So the thing is, they have this mentality that they are fighters, that they can win no matter what. They don't have to play well to get the job done. And so I think in that sense, they have more experience in this competition than the likes of Chelsea, who also have a much younger team. On average, it's like maybe 24, 25 years old, something like that. Real Madrid is an older side. You pointed out Luka Modric. I think he's 36 years old. Benzema's 34 years old. Kroos is 32 years old. So you have an aging midfield, even though they're still playing at an exceptionally high level. And same with Karim Benzema, who's having the best season ever, full stop. He's just an unbelievable player, not just because of the goals, but everything else that he offers in attack, his movements, the way he moves, he reads the game, the way that he creates spaces for his teammates in attack, the way that he can drag out opposition defenders and so on. So I think they have enough tools in the toolbox, if you like, to get something from this. And I think they do have a really good chance of going through against Chelsea, because I agree with James. I think whatever's happening off the pitch, football's an emotional game like any sport is, and it can seep in to the minds and to the psyche of the players and also to Tuchel, and it could have an effect. So I think there's a lot in favor of Real Madrid for this one, but I'm not necessarily certain that the better team at present will necessarily go through.
Yeah, this is a matchup of tactics and know-how and talent against the same thing, right? One, obviously, to Benji's point, a team that's probably playing better. You cannot, in this competition, disregard experience, elite, and just this winning mentality. And I feel Real Madrid have that. Could all the off-the-field distractions, James Bench, have a galvanizing effect on the Chelsea squad, do you think? Do you think they're losing a little bit of, collective unity? Or do you think it's more of what I said at the beginning, which is hopefully Tuchel? And actually, who was it? Michael, I think, Lahoud said a very good point about Chelsea needs the eldest statesmen, the older players in there, your Thiago Silvas, etc. Maybe even somebody like N'Golo Kante to just rally people together and be like, look, we got to stick together. What do you think?
It's a particularly strange one, because this isn't sort of like, again, we mentioned this earlier, Tuchel spoke really well about this. If you kind of think about the specific reasons why these things are happening, he was asked very early on, and it was a poor choice of words, but he was basically asked if this could allow him to create a siege mentality, which all managers are looking for. And of course, he rightly said no, because this is not a normal set of circumstances. This is about war going on in Ukraine, and I think the Chelsea players are not blind to that. They're intelligent young men. They kind of know why their club is suffering what it's suffering. And I don't think it does quite galvanize in the same way. Equally, I'm balancing that off against, I think there's probably something there is something quite unifying about, like, we've got to sort our own travel. We've got to get the bus. Everything's a bit harder for us. And, but I don't think it's quite the same as points deduction or a string of red cards, things like that. It is complex. Maybe this will all change because the new owner probably won't be in place. As we speak, the deadline for bids is in less than 12 hours. But it will be more than a month, I think, before the new owner is there. But
yeah, by May, I think
there will be some clarity probably going forward. A preferred bidder should have been selected. So maybe that at least means that some of the tough stuff is not hanging over Chelsea's head, and maybe everything I've said about an empty Stamford Bridge is null and void because by then, the sanctions have changed or something. So Chelsea are just completely unpredictable. Yeah, but you're probably going to ask me to predict what happens, aren't you?
Well, I will, but once we talk about all the teams, so don't worry. You both can mull it over before we finish talking about every fixture. But let's talk about Manchester City against Atletico de Madrid. As soon as those balls came out, Semra Hunter went like this. Oh no! Probably more than any other fixture. Obviously, we know the machine that is Man City, but Guardiola has still yet to win this competition with the club. The club is still waiting for that title. So it's not like they're, as James Bench said earlier, it's not, and Tottenham proved they're not completely omnipotent. How do you see, if this is to happen, Atletico de Madrid, Cholo Simeone, how can they do it?
They need to play the way they did against Manchester United. And I have to say, I'm surprised in Manchester United that they look like a team that had no idea who their opponents were. It was like they'd never seen Atletico Madrid play before. They just played completely into their hands. And they made it a bit too easy, especially in the second leg, I think. And that really surprised me. I expected, maybe I shouldn't have, considering Manchester United and the hot mess that they're in on and off the pitch as well. But I did expect at least a better performance from them, considering that they were at home, to show a little bit of pride, and they were very disappointing. And having said that, I know a lot of people were really upset about the way that Atletico Madrid played, but yes, that was vintage Atletico Madrid. That was probably the most Atleti style performance I've seen from them all season long. And that's the thing, they need to bring that against City, because they've had an incredibly irregular season. They've had a horrible defense of their title in La Liga. They've been so up and down, and they've been incredibly difficult to predict. So they've had the worst defensive records ever since Cholo Simeone has taken over. They've already surpassed that tally a while back. I think it's like 36, 37 goals, something like that they've shipped by now in La Liga. So they have a lot more defensive vulnerabilities, a lot more frailties at the back. They're definitely a lot easier to penetrate than they used to be, but they are scoring a little bit more than they also typically tend to do. Part of the problem is that they've been like a victim of their own success. The more that they've been winning over the last few years, the stronger they've become in terms of building the squad. They've been adding more quality, but also been making the squad much more offensive, which is kind of the opposite of how Cholo Simeone likes to play his football. He's a defensive-minded manager. And so he's really been grappling with, how do I make this work this season? How do I strike a balance with all this attacking flair and creative footballers that I have in the side? And at times it's worked, but at times it hasn't. And they've honestly been getting through a lot of the games based on the fact that they are just absolute warriors and fighters, and they'll play with aggression and physicality and do what they have to get a victory, not because they're playing well, if that makes sense. And he's been changing the system far too many times. Sometimes it's confused the players in the past. And so I think now they need to really stick to the guns and say, listen, okay, we have a blueprint. What we did against Manchester United across the two legs, it worked exceptionally well, and we need to stick to that. And I think if they can do that against City, then they have a fighting chance. But you already mentioned it. City are a goal-scoring machine. They're one of the best teams on the planet as well with Liverpool. And so for me, I think they will probably knock out Atletico Madrid. But I hope they at least put up a really good fight and a good showing against City, if that were to be the case.
Yeah, it's quite hard talking about City because perfect things, and City are a decent approximation of perfection in like the way they play. It can be a bit dull. Like it's slightly like, I mean, it will, the moments themselves can be thrilling, but then you kind of take a step back and look at the big picture. And like, I don't know what to tell people about Kevin De Bruyne and Mahrez and Grealish and Foden and everyone that they don't already know. So I'm going to ask Semra a question instead.
Okay.
About Jan Oblak, because I mean, we kind of in England, we kind of picked up on this before the first leg. Kind of watching the goals he's conceded, one of the things I saw was a lot beating him to his left. I don't know if you kind of have any insight on that, but also, especially in the second leg, it just felt like early on he had the yips or something like that, like a player that had lost all belief in his own technique, which is so strange to see. The best shot stopper, I think, in the world over recent years, and it just had gone. Like, what is the view in Spain as to what's gone wrong and like how to fix it? Because he will be so busy, won't he? He's
going to be incredibly busy, but I think everybody is going to be really busy at Atletico Madrid because they're just going to have to sit back in a low block and just defend. So you're spot on about Jan Oblak and the sensation that he gave you in the early stages of the game in the so-called yips, because it has been a recurring theme for him this entire campaign. He's not playing like himself at all. He's playing in a very uncharacteristic way, which is to say that he's making a lot of mistakes that historically he would never make. So you kind of wonder, I mean, we've been going on about this ourselves, trying to analyze what's going on with him this season. And I think there's a couple of factors. One is he seems to be maybe mentally, psychologically not at it for whatever reason. Maybe there's something going on in his life personally that we just don't know about, or whatever reason, there has been a knock in his confidence. He certainly isn't playing with that self-belief that he's had in the years prior. Certainly not like last season. Last season, he was tremendous and absolutely fundamental in them winning the league. And I think part of it as well is that because they're not as good defensively this season, that doesn't help. He's a lot more exposed. He's been put into action a lot more than he was last season, because a lot of the times the players that he had in front of him, like Savic or Jimenez, they were able to shut down opponents before they could even get to a Jan Oblak. That's not the case this season. So I think there's a little bit of lack of confidence in his own defenders, in those who are ahead of him. And also because they've had a lot of injury and issues as well because of COVID, like everybody else, so many teams have been affected by this. Cholo Simeone has been changing up the back line a lot, whether it's a back four, whether it's a back five, but also the individual pieces have been changing a lot. So there isn't a lot of unity amongst the defenders as well, or understanding necessarily. And it's opened itself up, or invited itself to have a bit of confusion, whether it's between themselves or with Oblak or whatever. So I think there's kind of this, how could I say it? Like a coming together of various factors that are leading to this issue with Oblak this season.
Yeah, it's not an individual thing. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not just an individual thing, but I think it is an individual and a collective thing. And I definitely think you're right that he's going to be very, very, very busy against City.
Yeah.
So
I will say though, and Man City, obviously we know how good they are and stuff. And they have proven me wrong in terms of my biggest criticism, which is they don't have a clinical number 9. And I feel that maybe that's not an issue in the Premier League, but in a tournament, in a competition, when everything, all the chips, maybe they'll make it to the final. But what happens then? Sometimes you need a Karim Benzema. Sometimes you need a Lewandowski. Sometimes you need, a target man in order to get you something when you're not playing well. But we will see. By the way, Atleti have advanced in 4 of the 5 ties against English sides. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that historically, but it might just be too much. Let's discuss the final game, of course, which is Bayern Munich against.
Let's not, okay?
All right, come on. Well, we can be quick on this one, I guess. First of all, like, commendable. Unai Emery, quarterfinals for the first time in the history of his managing career. Amazing. Now facing, and everybody should know the Villarreal story. This is a tiny, tiny town. Submarino Amarillo. Like they've got a great history of great players, etc. James Bench knows Unai Emery, of course, well from his Arsenal days as well. But this is a manager that knows how to play in Europe, winning Europa League for the first time last time around as well, and now in the Champions League. But now they're facing Bayern Munich, a team that just, if they're clicking the right time, they will score goals every time they blink. Semra Hunter, do they have, Atleti, Man City is one thing. How about Villarreal, Bayern Munich? What do you see here?
If ever there were an underdog, and let me tell you one thing about Atletico Madrid, they love to be the underdog. That's when they rise to the occasion. They get very nervous when they're the ones who are the favorites. So I think that will actually play really well into their hand, the fact that they will be the underdogs going into this one against City. I don't think that's going to be the case with Villarreal. I think they are the absolute underdogs. And I would so love to see a scenario where maybe if it were a single elimination game, maybe they would be able to get it done. But over two legs, I see it being extremely difficult for them to get past Bayern Munich. I think it's one of the most lopsided ties of the four, to be honest.
Yeah.
And regardless of what happens, I agree with you. We have to give Unai Emery massive respect for what he has done with Villarreal and also just who he is as a manager. We forget he's won the Europa League a lot with different teams. And he did it again with Villarreal in the very first season. That was why they brought him in. They wanted success. And they never even won any sort of silverware before that. So it was a huge deal for them. And now the following season have made it out of the group stage and out of the round of 16 and advanced to the qualifiers. I think that's to the quarterfinals. I think that's even surpassed everybody's expectations. So no matter what happens, I think he will earn massive respect for the work that he has done. It's been remarkable. It's been a joy to see, but I definitely think this is just way, way too big for them, a tie to overcome. I think Bayern Munich will probably go through with relative ease.
All right, James Bench.
I have two things that I think, I agree, but I have two things I think Villarreal could do to even the odds a little bit. One is a football idea. We saw with Salzburg in the round of 16 that basically, Bayern quite often really fall into, whether, deliberately it's by design or naturally, they end up with a back three. Either Alphonso Davies is so far ahead, or whoever's playing at left back, or actually, and in the first leg of the round of 16, Nagelsmann played, I think it was Koeman and Gnabry as wing backs. They're not back, they're wings, not backs. So what Salzburg did really well was just stick three strikers up there and just say, defend one-on-one. You will, we will gamble and hope that our keeper has it. And really great goalkeeper. So maybe you just gamble and you put Pino, Danjuma, Moreno at the top of the pitch and say, actually, we think we might win some individual duels against the not amazing defense. And then the other thing, and this will be much more effective, when the teams come out, play the Europa League music. Come on, Unai Emery hears that. He's winning. This is Unai Emery Europa League. He's winning that game. That would work. But other than that, I got nothing.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And I totally agree with you. I think if he decides to take a roll of the dice to gamble and say, you know what, let's actually go for this. Let's put on more attacking players than just sitting back and defending, which is what they've been doing in Europe. It's just sitting deep and defending. Then maybe you're right, because of Bayern's high press, as we said before, they have so much space to run into behind them. Danjuma is incredibly fast. So is Yeremy Pino. And if Gerard Moreno is fit and in form, then they can definitely get a goal or two, especially playing at home. But that's definitely a really good point that you mentioned.
Yeah, never say never in this situation. But, Bayern Munich on paper obviously looked like the favorite. But, especially if Villarreal are healthy, things could definitely go, I guess, a better way than they expect. All right, well, those were the fixtures. So let's do a quick prediction. All right, you don't have to think about it too much. Just your gut reaction. Try and think brain over heart. But let's see. So I'm gonna say the fixture. You're gonna tell me the winner, and you can just be literally the team, and that's it. And we can figure out what the semifinals are, and then figure out a final. See if we all come to agreement. So first one up, Benfica against Liverpool. Nice and easy. Semra Hunter.
Liverpool.
All right, James Bench.
Liverpool.
No need for it. It's obviously Liverpool. All right, so we got Liverpool winning that one. All right, let's go to Man City, Atletico de Madrid, Semra Hunter.
Man City.
James Bench.
Yeah, City.
All right, and we have Chelsea against Real Madrid, Semra Hunter.
Real Madrid.
Real Madrid, James Bench.
Chelsea.
Oh, there we go.
Some discrepancy, finally.
Yeah, finally. And the next one, the final one, of course, Villarreal, Bayern Munich, Semra Hunter.
Bayern Munich.
James Bench.
Bayern Munich.
All right. So we're all in agreement aside from the Chelsea Real Madrid fixture. I'm actually going to go with Real Madrid in this one, I think. Yeah. So obviously the semifinals will look a little bit different, but now that you know who's meeting who do you see on one side of the bracket? Who do you see in the final, James Bench?
So I think it's Liverpool, probably.
Yeah.
I think it's
Wow.
Liverpool-Chelsea.
Ooh.
Wow. Semra Hunter?
I agree with Liverpool.
Yeah.
I agree with Liverpool. The other side is really difficult about the bracket. Obviously, I said no Chelsea, so it's got to be Real Madrid or it's got to be City.
Yeah.
Ooh. I think it will be City, Liverpool.
Yeah,
again.
I think so too. I was gonna go with a Man City Real Madrid wishful thinking final, but that's out the window because of the bracket.
But so much also depends on who's available for the games.
Yeah,
you know?
Rash, thank you so much.
It's difficult to say so far in advance because things may happen between suspensions, injuries, etc. But I mean, if we had to go based on form today, I think that's what I would go with, City, Liverpool.
The race for the title is Man City against Liverpool. I think the Champions League final is going to be Liverpool against Man City. But wouldn't that be something for the Premier League, etc.? But anyway, there you have it, everybody. That's your Champions League quarterfinals. We're all set. So happy that, first of all, Semra Hunter, thank you so much for being part of the show. Semra Hunter, by the way, you can follow her on Twitter, Semra Hunter. And of course, she's part of La Liga TV. Exceptional work over there with her cast and crew, dissecting everything that's beautiful about the Spanish league. Semra, thank you so much. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to plug before you say goodbye?
Thank you very much, obviously, for having me. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. It's been such a phenomenal chat. I'm really excited about the Champions League, but maybe I shouldn't because I've knocked out all of the Spanish teams. But yeah, I don't know. Viva la Liga, baby.
I love it. I love it. Hey, by the way, we have a Europa League show coming later as well. And Barcelona, I mean, thoughts on that one?
Having the final Barcelona to win. There you go. And they're playing at the Sanchez Pizjuan, the home of Sevilla. So
that's true. Barcelona West Ham final is what everybody wants, I think. Definitely. James
del Oeste.
I love it.
No, I want Barcelona West Ham in like every round.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Final thoughts, James Bench, aside from Barcelona and West Ham in every round.
Yeah, I'm just this end to the season is going to be incredibly grueling for anyone that's looking at like Premier League football. It's going to be relentless, and yeah, you wouldn't want to be the guy covering it on his own for CBS, would you?
Yeah, I know. Don't worry. I'll try and move back to England in a few years, James Bench. Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. But Semra Hunter, thank you so much for being here. James Bench, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Loved your comments. Love everything. Don't forget to follow us. Qué Golazo Pod on Twitter, Semra Hunter on Twitter, James Bench on Twitter, LME Echegaray, of course, and we have plenty more to come. Europa League weekend preview is already out, of course. We'll have weekend recap at the end of the weekend. Plenty of interviews. I interviewed the Williams brothers, Nico and Iñaki. That was amazing. Make sure to check that out. So much content. We will see you next time. Enjoy the weekend. Until then, bye-bye. Adios.
Adios.